Hello friend, today I'm going to share how to rewild your attention.
And I'm going to share about my favorite poetry podcast. Let's get to it.
I'm going to be sharing an article, and this is 9 ways to rewild your attention. How to inject more weirdness and randomness into stuff you read and see. And this is by Clive Thompson. So, algorithms and big tech feeds, they have 2 problems. They focus heavily on hot, viral, here and now things, the things that are happening at this moment, and also, of course, the bubble. It's material that's customized for you. So the concept of rewilding your attention means actively choosing to poke around elsewhere. So when I first thought about this, I thought about, oh, it must be another article about taking a walk in the forest, which I love, but no, this is actually searching out things that you might not find elsewhere in the interwebs. Now, he has 2 caveats. This is just things that he does personally, and they are text heavy, so he skims things until something grabs his attention, and then he dives in. He also says that the signal to noise ratio is low. He talks about it's like panning for gold. So be patient with it, but here are some of his methods. RSS feeds for the win. RSS feeds are a way to automatically follow blogs and other online publications. Usually they're in chronological order and not an algorithmic one. So it'll give you a more just way to follow something and a topic that you like. Fradycat, I believe it's called, is an RSS kind of app. So you can have an app form to do the same thing. He only checks it like once a quarter or so. So you don't have to check it all the time. It's just when you want to kind of rewild and reset your attention. Browsing rapidly through paper books. So he will head to the library, I love this idea, to the public library, check out the new nonfiction table, and just remember that nonfiction authors have spent years and years distilling knowledge into this book. You hold in your hands is a miracle, and you can get so much more information from it. Reading super old books online, so they're in the public domain, check those out. Rummaging through discussion boards, remember those? A lot of people probably don't even know what that is. Some people call them subreddits these days, but there's PBB bulletin boards, link surfing and niche blogs, things like that. Weird search engines. Oh, I love this one. Don't forget to check that out in show notes. Poetry. He talks about how they are some of the weirdest people around, and definitely check them out because poets have a unique take on the world and language. And talking to other people. Remember that people are interesting and also a little bit weirder than they usually let on at first, but they love to share their stories. We've kind of talked about that. Definitely check out how to rewild your attention.
Woo!
I went way over on time on that one, but I had to get it out. There's too many good ones.
No, indeed. And some of these things I do, like going to a bookstore, and some of these I've never heard of at all.
Yeah, these alternate search engines I found super fascinating.
Yeah.
And I can't wait. I didn't get to experiment too much on them yet because I was still just gathering my notes, but I cannot wait to dive in on some of those.
For
and
sure.
you know, this is kind of what we do with the show.
Yes.
And this is one of my favorite things about the show is we're constantly searching out new information. And it's because we're curious. It's part of our whole motto, stay curious. But I do. It does refresh me to find all these new things. I love it. And this will give me some new tips on how to find new cool sheets. Yeah, can't wait. I love it. Such a good article.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Woo, another way to find more cool sheets.
Yes. Love that.
All right. My cool sheet is a podcast. You just mentioned poetry, and the name of this podcast is Poetry Unbound. This is hosted by Padraig Ó Tuama, a poet who is native to Ireland and so has this lovely accent. And being a poet himself, it is perfect that he is the host of this podcast. It is produced by the same group that produces On Being, former Cool Sheet, so you know that the quality is going to be very good. So here is the premise. It is a deep dive into one poem per episode. So he reads the poem and he delves into it. And it's not in an academic dissection kind of way. It's more in a feelings-based approach. And I must say, me personally, I don't read a lot of poetry. I'm not a poet myself, maybe lyrics sometimes, but it really helps me with poetry appreciation. And it gets me to read, or I should say listen to poetry that I don't usually do. And so it brings in this perspective on how to listen to the poem, and he brings in his own insights. So he starts off, as I said, he reads the full poem, and then he goes into a monologue of going through it, of different things to take note of highlighting different parts of it. And then at the end of the podcast episode, he reads the poem again. And so that you experience it a second time after hearing his outlook on it and what he has highlighted, I have found it to be, it's like a completely different experience after hearing him go through it. And it's not worse. It's not like he just dissected it and now I see it in this different way. It's just a whole new viewpoint on it. So a recent episode, he read a poem by Alberto Rios called December Morning in the Desert. He describes before the sun rises, the stars are still out. He ties together the marvels of the cosmos with the winged creatures around him. It's so beautiful. I loved it so much. Many of them bring in other poets, but most of them he is reading himself. I highly recommend this podcast, Poetry Unbound.
Oh, this is so cool. Yeah, I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah.
Because I don't listen or read to poetry as often as I would kind of like to. I don't know, and I know that a lot of people are kind of like that, but then they eventually, I think you kind of get the poetry bug and you get bit and then you're into it. And I've talked about, some poetry stuff in the past. So I do like it, and I always want to get more into it. So this might really do it for me too.
And also because they're short.
Yeah.
So he reads the poem, talks about it a little bit, reads it again. It very the last one I listened to was 15 minutes.
Oh, cool.
It was just great in the morning. I'm making breakfast, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, so it can be this nice little bite-sized piece.
Yes.
And I love that he does it once where you have it's just totally raw. You listen to it, you can interpret it the way you want, then you kind of hear his perspective, and then he reads it again. I love that. When I've been talking about that Talking Sopranos and how I've been watching the show, and I always wanted my perfect way would be to watch the show, listen to the podcast, and then listen to their insight, and then do it again. But we're talking about like 6 hours of time, not 15 minutes. I just watch the show and listen to the podcast, and that's great. I wish I could do it all three though, because then it would just be so much better. But it sounds like it's a lot easier to do it this way. So I can't wait. And maybe it'll get me into poetry even more.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
sharing that. Don't forget to check out our show notes at 10bestest.com/sidewalk. Thank you for joining us, friend. I'm Brian Hart.
I'm Karen McFarlane-Holman.
Let us know in the comments, have you ever rewilded your attention?
And let us know, do you ever take time to read poetry?
If you're enjoying the show, give us a like and share it with a friend.
Stay tuned tomorrow for another show.
And don't forget to stay curious.